The rise and fall of the British Empire. In the late 15th century, British ships sailed beyond the known world, driven by dreams of wealth and adventure. The cool Atlantic breeze filled their sails as they crossed uncharted waters. These voyages marked the beginning of Britain's global expansion. Under the reign of Elizabeth I, England emerged as a formidable maritime power. Privateers like Sir Francis Drake raided Spanish galleons, bringing back gold and glory. The salty sea air and the thrill of the chase fueled England's growing ambition. The early 1600s saw the establishment of England's first overseas colonies. Jamestown, founded in 1607, became the first permanent English settlement in America. The settlers faced harsh winters and hostile environments, but their perseverance laid the foundation for a new world. The East India Company, founded in 1600, began as a trading entity, but soon evolved into a powerful political force in India. British merchants and soldiers navigated the monsoon winds, establishing trade posts across the subcontinent. Their presence in India marked the start of Britain's imperial ambitions in Asia. The Caribbean islands became crucial to Britain's wealth through the establishment of sugar plantations. The sweltering heat and backbreaking labor of enslaved Africans fueled the sugar trade, enriching the British economy. This brutal system became a cornerstone of Britain's colonial wealth. A series of naval conflicts between England and the Netherlands saw the British Navy assert its dominance. The sound of cannon fire echoed across the English Channel as fleets clashed for control of global trade routes. These wars marked England's rise as a major naval power. The Glorious Revolution solidified constitutional monarchy in Britain, paving the way for political stability and imperial expansion. The cold winds of November 1688 blew as William of Orange landed in England, reshaping the nation's future. This shift in power allowed Britain to focus on global dominance. The War of Spanish Succession established Britain as a leading European power. British soldiers fought across Europe, enduring harsh winters and fierce battles. The Treaty of Utrecht in 1713 expanded Britain's territories, including the acquisition of Gibraltar and Newfoundland. Mercantilism became the driving force behind Britain's economic policies in the 18th century. Ships laden with goods from the colonies sailed back to England, their holds full of raw materials and wealth. This economic strategy fueled the empire's expansion and solidified its global influence. The transatlantic slave trade became a dark yet integral part of the British Empire's economic system. Enslaved Africans were transported in horrific conditions, the stench of despair filling the air below decks. This inhumane trade brought immense wealth to Britain at an unimaginable human cost. The 7 Years' War saw Britain fighting across Europe, North America, and Asia. British redcoats marched through the forests of North America, their uniforms contrasting with the green wilderness. Victory in 1763 secured Canada and significant gains in India, marking Britain as the world's preeminent power. The American colonies rebelled against British rule, igniting a war that shook the empire. The smell of gunpowder filled the air as battles raged from New England to the southern colonies. The loss of the American colonies in 1783 was a profound blow to British pride and power. Britain became the first nation to industrialize, transforming its economy and society. The skies over British cities darkened with coal smoke as factories churned out goods at unprecedented rates. This technological revolution fueled the empire's economic dominance. The early 19th century saw Britain locked in a life-and-death struggle with Napoleonic France. British soldiers battled across Europe while the Royal Navy secured the seas. The Battle of Waterloo in 1815 ended Napoleon's ambitions and reaffirmed Britain as the dominant European power. The Congress of Vienna reshaped Europe after the Napoleonic Wars, with Britain playing a key role. Diplomats gathered in grand halls, their discussions determining the balance of power for the next century. This diplomatic victory secured Britain's influence over the continent. The 19th century saw Britain enter an era of relative peace known as the Pax Britannica. British naval power ensured the free flow of global trade, with ships patrolling every ocean. This period allowed the empire to expand its influence without major conflicts. Britain joined other European powers in the scramble to colonize Africa. Explorers and soldiers braved the continent's harsh environments, from the sweltering deserts to the dense jungles. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 85 formalized British control over vast African territories. The Opium Wars with China were fought to protect British trade interests. British gunboats sailed up Chinese rivers, enforcing the empire's will through military might. The resulting treaties opened China to British trade, marking a significant expansion of imperial influence in Asia. The Indian Rebellion of 1857 was a major challenge to British rule in India. British soldiers, enduring the sweltering heat of the Indian plains, fought fiercely to suppress the uprising. The rebellion's suppression led to the dissolution of the East India Company and the establishment of direct British control over India. The British Raj saw direct British rule over India, with the subcontinent becoming the crown jewel of the empire. Viceroys ruled from grand palaces, while British officers commanded the vast Indian army. The wealth and resources of India fueled the empire's global ambitions. The Anglo-Zulu War in South Africa pitted British forces against the powerful Zulu kingdom. British redcoats, armed with modern rifles, faced the disciplined Zulu warriors under the scorching African sun. The Battle of Rorke's Drift became a symbol of British military resilience. The late 19th century saw European powers carve up Africa in a frenzy of imperial expansion. British explorers and soldiers ventured into the heart of the continent, battling the heat, disease, and hostile terrain. The Berlin Conference of 1884–85 formalized British claims in Africa, adding vast territories to the empire. The British Empire engaged in a strategic rivalry with Russia known as the Great Game. British agents and explorers traversed the mountains and deserts of Central Asia, their every move shadowed by Russian counterparts. This geopolitical chess match determined the fate of empires and the control of vast territories. The Boer Wars in South Africa were fought over control of the region's rich resources. British soldiers, dressed in khaki, battled Boer guerrillas in the rugged terrain. The wars highlighted the challenges of imperial rule and the limits of British power. The reign of Queen Victoria marked the zenith of the British Empire. The Queen's image adorned coins and stamps, symbolizing the empire's reach from Canada to India, Australia to Africa. The phrase, "the sun never sets on the British Empire," became a reality during this period. The Irish question, concerning Ireland's status within the United Kingdom, plagued British politics for centuries. Tensions boiled over during the Irish War of Independence, 1919 to 1921, where Irish Republicans fought for freedom. The resulting partition of Ireland in 1921 marked a significant challenge to the unity of the British Isles. The rise of nationalism in the 19th and 20th centuries posed a significant threat to the British Empire. Colonized peoples began to demand self-determination, inspired by ideals of freedom and independence. The empire's grip on its territories began to weaken as nationalist movements gained momentum. The British Empire played a crucial role in both world wars, with troops from across the empire fighting on numerous fronts. The trenches of the Western Front saw soldiers from Britain, India, Canada, and Australia enduring harsh conditions and relentless combat. In the deserts of North Africa and the jungles of Southeast Asia, imperial forces fought bravely, contributing significantly to the eventual Allied victories. In 1919, the Amritsar massacre in India became a turning point in the struggle for independence. British troops opened fire on a peaceful protest, killing hundreds and igniting widespread outrage. The oppressive heat of the Indian summer mirrored the rising tensions between British authorities and the Indian populace. The Irish War of Independence marked the beginning of the end for British rule in Ireland. Guerrilla warfare in the misty, rain-soaked hills and streets of Ireland led to a brutal conflict between Irish Republicans and British forces. The Anglo-Irish Treaty of 1921 resulted in the partition of Ireland, creating the Irish Free State and leaving Northern Ireland under British control. The Balfour Declaration of 1917 and the subsequent British Mandate for Palestine played a crucial role in the landscape of the Middle East. The arid landscapes of Palestine became the setting for increasing tensions between Jewish and Arab populations. Britain's attempts to manage the situation ultimately laid the groundwork for future conflicts. The interwar period was marked by economic difficulties and rising nationalist sentiments across the empire. The Great Depression of the 1930s saw economic hardship spread from the metropole to the colonies, weakening British control. Political unrest and strikes became common, with the British government struggling to maintain order. The Statute of Westminster in 1931 granted legislative independence to the dominions of the British Empire. Countries like Canada, Australia, and South Africa began to assert their autonomy while still recognizing the British monarch. The cold legal language of the statute belied the significant shift in power it represented. World War II saw the British Empire mobilize its vast resources in the fight against the Axis powers. Soldiers from across the empire fought in deserts, jungles, and icy tundras, enduring extreme weather conditions and grueling battles. Despite the eventual victory, the war left Britain economically drained and its empire strained to the breaking point. The Atlantic Charter, signed by Churchill and Roosevelt in 1941, set the stage for post-war decolonization. The document, while promising self-determination, sowed seeds of hope among colonized nations yearning for independence. The war-weary British government, facing immense pressure, began to reconsider its imperial commitments. In 1947, the British Empire's most prized possession, India, gained independence. The monsoon rains of that summer could not wash away the deep divisions that led to the partition of India and Pakistan. The departure of British authorities marked the beginning of the end for the empire in Asia. The post-war period saw a wave of decolonization sweep through Africa and the Caribbean. British colonies, emboldened by the winds of change, demanded independence, and Britain, weakened by war, began to grant it. The speeches of leaders like Harold Macmillan acknowledged that the era of empire was drawing to a close. The Suez Crisis of 1956 was a stark reminder of Britain's diminished global power. The failed attempt to seize control of the Suez Canal underlined the shifting balance of power, with the United States and Soviet Union emerging as superpowers. The hot desert sun bore witness to the last gasp of Britain's imperial might. The Mau Mau uprising in Kenya was one of the most brutal conflicts of the late empire. The dense forests of Kenya became a battleground between British forces and Kikuyu fighters. The bloody repression of the uprising revealed the lengths to which Britain would go to maintain control, even as the tide of decolonization surged. The 1960s saw the rapid decolonization of Africa, with one British colony after another gaining independence. The red, sandy landscapes of Africa bore witness to jubilant celebrations and tense transitions. The British Empire, once the world's largest, was reduced to a shadow of its former self. The Troubles in Northern Ireland represented a violent chapter in the legacy of British rule. The streets of Belfast and Derry were marred by bombings and shootings as nationalist and unionist forces clashed. The conflict underscored the complex and painful legacy of British imperialism. The Falklands War in 1982 saw Britain assert its control over the remote South Atlantic islands. British troops, braving the icy winds and rough seas, reclaimed the Falklands from Argentine forces. The war was a reminder of Britain's enduring, if diminished, military capabilities. In 1997, Britain handed over Hong Kong to China, marking the end of British colonial rule in Asia. The tropical rains of the monsoon season reflected the bittersweet nature of the occasion. The handover symbolized the final chapter in the story of the British Empire. The legacy of the British Empire continues to shape the modern world. From the Commonwealth of Nations to the English language's global dominance, the empire's influence is still felt. Yet, the scars of colonialism remain, a complex and often painful legacy that continues to be reckoned with today. Our journey through time comes to an end for today. We embark on new adventures every week. If you relish the experience, please like and subscribe.